Yeah, good morning. Let us resume our discussion on convolutional networks. So one of you quickly tell a couple of points that we have discussed in last class before I start. Yeah, quick points.
We talked about model ensembles.
Yeah, we discussed about
Ensembles.
okay, ensemble of neural networks, ensemble of models for better training. Fine. What else?
We also discussed about dropout layers and why they're important.
What's that?
Dropouts, sir.
Dropouts. Okay, we discussed about the role of dropouts in better optimization or regularization or model ensemble for training of neural networks. Okay, what else? Anything else? Okay, so let's or discuss more in more detail about how the evolution of convolutional network architectures has happened. Also, I have given two basic ideas based on which convolutional networks have evolved. Also, I will discuss them first and then discuss a little further, more explicitly on the evolution of convolutional neural networks architectures. Okay. As you know, there are several convolutional neural networks architectures. As discussed in the previous class, the ImageNet challenge is the key where we clearly document the importance of convolutional networks in or the performance boost due to the architectural designs and the overall based on convolution neural networks itself. What is the performance boost that we have obtained on a very important problem of computer vision, that is image classification? Okay, so as I mentioned in the ImageNet challenge, we have 14 million images overall and 1.5 million images available for challenge in terms of training and testing. Okay, and it spans over 1,000 classes. See, this is the almost the largest data set in image processing or in computer vision itself. And this is where the start of the very robust, thorough testing of the algorithms has happened. And image classification being a very important problem of computer vision itself, the focus is very well laid in terms of the development of classification algorithms. So before I discuss on the evolution of architectures, why do you think image classification is an important problem? I need a couple of answers first to focus our discussion more on image classification. So why do you think image classification? I am just mentioning that image classification is a very important problem in computer vision. So can one of you tell the importance of it? Yeah, please quickly tell. Okay, Prabhat.
Yes, sir. So it gives some sort of a high-level overview, like high-level understanding of for the machines, like
High-level understanding of
like machines can process only bits, but a task of image classification requires you to understand what is there in the image.
Right, that's fine. See, okay. So any other answers? So some image,
Maybe other problems can be posed as a classification problem.
yeah, can you repeat again?
Like other problems like tracking also can be posed as a classification problem.
Okay, so very good. So first point you people have mentioned is image learning or understanding about image classification in general enables us to understand the image. Image or features of the image. Okay, that's one thing based on which we do classification. So we spend a good amount of time or understanding on image features and image itself. Second thing is image class. Many of the computer vision problems can be posed as image classification. Yeah, other people understand how is that? Huh? Yes or no? Srihari, do you understand how image classification is key for like any other computer vision problems as well? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how?
Like suppose if we have some cancerous cells, we can segment it like through image classification.
Okay, if you have say white blood cells, okay, and then some red blood cells. Okay, so if you want to see where the red blood cell is, okay, you can also try to put a like classifier taking each patch and try to say whether it is a red blood cell or red blood cell. Or if you have a image, say with face, okay, face of a person. Also here face. Okay, and here anyway, hands and so on. Also face of a person if you want to detect. So each patch you can take, and in each patch you can see whether there is a face or not. So it's again a classification problem. And what Bhavana has mentioned is on tracking. So where you can, if you want to track a object, you can see where that patch is in the next frame. And that can be posed as a classification problem. Each patch you can take, is it same as the earlier patch or not? Okay, it's a binary classification problem. So many of the computer vision tasks can be posed as classification problem, and you understand the image better in image classification. Okay, so these are two very important aspects. And the second one is much more important, because if you understand image classification, or if you can tackle image classification, you are addressing essentially many other image classification problems as well. Okay, so there has been a lot focus in image classification. Okay, and this is the challenging data set that has been developed before. And now, as I mentioned, in 2010, the start of this challenge had started with this data set. And the accuracies at that time, or the errors at that time, okay, were about say 25%. Okay, and then as I mentioned in 2012, okay, there is a still here what we have are computer vision methods. Okay, classical computer vision methods. Okay, which are followed by a machine learning based classifiers, but they are shallow classifiers. You don't have deep or more layers. Okay, and also it's a simple neural network. That means you are bringing the features to one dimension. Okay, and then trying to do classification. So here so far what we have is computer vision, okay, plus machine learning. Okay, so together is what is giving classification. Okay, from 2010 onwards or 12 onwards, what we had is the evolution of deep learning methods. Deep learning methods. Okay, especially convolution neural networks. Okay, so with different architectural changes within the convolution neural networks. Okay, so and the accuracy is now started boosting, and 2000, as I said, 2013. Okay, and we have actually one more network. So this is 16% error. Okay, and this probably might have got to 11% error. Okay, and then 2014, there are two networks. In fact, with very good accuracies, around 7% error. Okay, and then 6% error and so on. Okay, 6.7 or whatever, 6 is close to 7% error again. So both are say very good models. So this is referred to VZZ network. Okay, and this is referred to Google Net. Okay, 6.7% error. Okay, and then this also, I think, if I remember, 7% error. So this is say first network is called LXNet, is referred to as LXNet. Okay, and the next one is ZFNet, and from there VZZ and Google Net are in some sense the architectural evolution is much more okay compared to LXNet, VZZ and Google Net. Okay, and then the further evolution has started. So here, what the number of layers are of the order of 19 to 22. What we have here is 8 layers. Okay, 8 or 9 layers. Okay, so the number of layers are also increased. All are convolution neural networks. Okay, so from here, convolution neural network characterizes only. And then subsequently, the era of much more deeper networks has started. That's in 2015. Okay, so and then say small variations around that and so on. Okay, and finally we could reach 3% error here, 3.5% error here, and 2% error. Okay, or 2.5% error. So it's close to actually very small error. So 98% accuracies. On the very large scale data set, please note that this data set is very, very big. Okay, on this data, if you see, actually there will be some visual results that I will show later. Okay, but you can see that the data set contains instead of cat, only tail of the cat. Okay, and we want to recognize what it is. So like that. So and even within cat, there may be several categories. Okay, so are you able to see the shared screen? Are you there with me? Hello?
Actually, I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
able to.
Yeah, you're not able to see the shared screen. Yeah, I'm sharing again. You're able to see the shared screen now?
No, sir.
No, right. Now you are able to see. Fine. So let's continue. So we, as I mentioned, so the accuracies now are of 98%. Okay, and the networks now are of also very deeper. That is, say, 152 layer. And this is further revolution in terms of the in terms of the neural network architectures. The main key point here and here are slightly different. I will stress upon it. So these networks mainly are focused on how effectively we use the image features. Okay, see, for example, in an image, so when we have a, say, different objects, assume that there is a face of the person, okay, and there is a cell phone, okay, in the hand of the person. Okay, this is cell phone, and then our mobile phone, and this is face. So we want to distinguish both of them. See, face may be of, you can, of large resolution, or if you see it occupies more pixels, okay, and then the cell phone may occupy lesser number of pixels. So the features of face can be much more effectively captured in a coarser resolution. rather than saying high or low, because high and low resolution usually refers to the how each spatial location, okay, how many say how many number of pixels we take in a given spatial location, that refers to high resolution or low resolution. So if we take in a same spatial resolution, spatial location, more number of pixels, we say high resolution image. Okay, in the same spatial resolution, if we take less number of pixels in the capture in the, that means in the image or in the CCD camera, then we call low resolution. Okay, image. That's why you have actually say with the same field of view, a 1 megapixel camera will look at the details only up to, say for example, some resolution, and a 4 megapixel camera will look at 4 times more, okay, more finer details than 1 megapixel camera, like that. Okay, so you can tie the resolution to the spatial, like finer details of the in the spatial domain that we can capture. Whereas coarse resolution, if we mean, so our coarse scale, okay, coarse scale if we mean, our coarse resolution also is fine. Okay, so what we do is we are seeing at a bigger region, okay, and then our bigger object and trying to get the information of it. Okay, that is at coarser scale. Okay, our coarser resolution. And then finer scale means, so at say we are trying to see at a very minute details. If I am looking at eyes, nose and all separately, it is finer details or finer scale. If I am looking the whole face together, region of face together, it is coarser. Okay, so usually the in computer vision it is very well evolved that if you want to extract good features, okay, you need to go from coarse resolution to the fine resolution. Okay, so the methods also evolve like that. So first extract the features, okay, feature extraction, features at coarse scales or coarser resolution. Followed by feature set, followed by finer resolution. What is the advantage of this? Okay, this is one way of doing. So there are some methods which will do in, especially in deep learning. Okay, we may do at finer resolution first and then go to the coarse resolution. Okay, so what we are doing, we are assimilating the information. If we are going from finer details to the coarser details. Okay, or if we are bringing coarser details directly, okay, we are in computer vision, that's what is done, because average information we want to gather and we want to bring in finer and finer details. Okay, so you can go from coarse scale to the finer scale, or you, when analyzing, you can go from finer details to the coarser details. Okay, to get a overall understanding. So this here, see, these evolution of VCC and GoogleNet are mainly concentrated on going from, okay, finer details to the coarser details. Or they are interested in assimilating the information at different scales. Different scales mean finer and coarser. Okay, because we are given a single image, not with different resolutions. We don't have the flexibility to change the camera. We assume that the images are taken and given for us from a given camera. So we are looking at in a given camera, are we looking at finer details or coarser details? Okay, that's what is the discussion now. So some methods like in this VCC and GoogleNet, especially VCC go for finer details to the coarser details, whereas GoogleNet goes for finer details and coarser details together. It would like to analyze the image information not at one resolution, but at different resolutions and want to assimilate. Okay, so assimilate the information at finer and coarser details. Okay, that's essentially is done in GoogleNet. Okay, so the later developments in the architectural evolution, okay, majorly focused on, see, whatever we are doing through computer vision, we are trying to look at, say, details in coarse resolution, fine resolution, and integrate them or fuse them okay, to get the good information. But however, there is a mapping necessary, okay, when there is an input image and an output label. See, essentially, if you want to perform an image classification task, say you have an image and you want to say whether it is a, say for example, you want to tie to several labels, okay, cat or dog, okay, or face or whatever. Okay, so you want to tie to different class labels, X or with XK, samples are with us. We want to tie them to YK labels. Okay, so, and these YKs are only numbers, nothing else. And these XK are image features. Okay, we want to somehow give a mapping between these two. So, which is not very, say it's like there can be, it's not very unique and trivial. And there can be many to one mapping, and say in some cases there may be very these, see among these XK, there are few things that we need to consider, especially while doing classification or mapping. See, if we have 1,000 classes, there may be some samples from one class to other class which are very closer. Okay, that is called interclass variance. Okay, or interclass difference. If these samples are very closer between classes, that is interclasses. Okay, interclass variance is very less. And within the class, what may happen? There may be good variability of the samples. Okay, that means if we see deformed object or with only some parts of the object, it may look like, it may not look like a complete object in that class itself. That is called intra-class variance. So especially in image classification, what are very well focused or important is, okay, intra-class variance versus interclass variation. Okay, so in some cases, this is not very clear demarcation. So if I sketch the samples in 2 dimensions, what may happen is, okay, if these are all one class samples, okay, and these are all other class samples, I can say that intra-class variance is very high, very low, and interclass variance is very high, because samples between 2 classes can be easily separated. But if there's a mixing like this, okay, so then what I say, intra-class variance for the first class is very high. Okay, interclass variance is, okay, very low. Also, because between the class 1 and class 2 also there may be some class samples which are very close. You can see that these samples especially, okay, these samples, okay, are more closer to the class 2 samples than class 1 samples. Okay, so which is indicating that the intra-class variability and interclass variability are not good enough. So to separate these 2 classes. But how do we increase them? That's the question. Say I'm plotting actually some features, okay, X1 and X2. The question is, how do we improve them? Intra-class variance and the intra-class variance, how do we bring it smaller? Interclass variance, how do we make it bigger? How do we do that? Is a question. Can one of you answer? Yeah, quick answer is very welcome. This is where you can show your understanding. Okay, so I assume that I need to tell. Okay, so you need to look at the image, okay, in different way. That means the image information directly look at pixels, okay, may not be able to separate interclass variance and intraclass variance. Okay, between 2 faces, for example, if we see, many things are common. Okay, eyes are there, nose are there, the placement is same. Okay, so that's not much difference. So if you directly see in the image pixel space, okay, so it may not be good enough to separate the samples. So you may need to look them in different feature space. Okay, that different feature space could be, say, extracting the, say, distance between eyes, for example, or the distance, like the size of different things, or the color of different aspects, and so on. Okay, so you need to look at some other features which will enable us to distinguish, or learn some features which will enable us to distinguish between the classes. For learning the features itself, Okay, you need more number of layers. Okay, so it's not good enough to learn with the 2 layers or 5 layers in a neural network. So these deeper neural networks are evolved essentially to focus on learning the features, okay, more effective features, or to tackle any complex classification problem. Okay, and learning the features using deeper layers. Okay, using more layers, more and more layers. But the challenge here is, see, if I start bringing the network architecture bigger, there has to be, say, learning from the only loss that I have at the output layer. There has to be a learning at all layers of the network. Is it not? I have to be able to learn at the initial layers as well. Well, across, say, if I have loss at, say, in a 100-layer network, I should be able to learn at 98th layer from the loss function. Okay, or 99th layer from the loss function. Otherwise, this layer, initial layers are only, say, dummy. They are not essentially learning anything or doing anything. Effective feature extraction even. Okay, so how do we improve the learning at deeper neural networks? Okay, so that's where the focus of these deeper networks are. Okay, now we will see. So this phrase is also important, learning the features using more and more layers. Okay, so now let us see what essentially, how the evolution has happened. What are the things that have contributed for better evolution in convolutional networks? Before we do that, let's understand a couple of things that we have previously studied. Okay, but we need to be clear on discussing further now. Assume that we have a convolution neural network. Okay, and we have a convolution layer. The convolution layer is with 7x7, okay, filters. Okay, kernel is 7x7. Assume that we have C channels here. Okay, and we want to evolve to again C channels. Assume that we, for the sake of simplicity, I now may not discuss about much on the pooling layers. Okay, whenever we are needed, we will bring in pooling. Otherwise, discuss more on the convolution operation. Okay, so there is a convolution operation between them. This is a convolution layer with 7x7 filters. Okay, and what is important for me is to understand the number of operations. Okay, so few things that are important is understand the number of operations. So this symbol corresponds to number. Okay, in the deep learning exam, I see that some people might not have even understood the symbol, what this is. Okay, so this is number of operations. And then we are also interested in receptive field. Receptive field means even if I have a 10-layer network, okay, if I consider a neuron at any of the layer, how much region does it look at? Okay, in the original image. Okay, that's what is the receptive field. Okay, so if I have even, say, I may have actually another like layer as well. So even if I have 3 layers or 5 layers, how much is that a neuron in a given layer looks at in the original, in the first image? Okay, that's what is the receptive field. Okay, so we are not the immediate receptive field we can be with respect to the previous layer. Okay, but if essentially the receptive field means if we consider a pixel here, okay, how much does it look at? Okay, in this original one. Okay, so that's what is the receptive field. Okay, if this looks at this essentially, okay, that's the receptive field. Okay, now let's bring in these things. So for this case, now we assume that we have C channels here and C channels here. Okay, and then the filter is of 7x7. Now tell me, what is the receptive field of this neuron? Yeah, quickly answer so that we will move on faster. What is the receptive field of this neuron?
7x7.
Yeah, simply this is 7 by 7 because there is only one layer. And the operation that we've performed to get this neuron here is what? Okay, so the output, say if I consider this is XL at health layer and this is XL plus 1. Okay, a neuron in XL plus 1, okay, is obtained through what operation? Between with the XL neurons. Okay, what operation is there in between? Yeah, please.
Convolution.
Between what operation?
It's convolution with the kernel.
Yeah, that's all. Convolution with the kernel. Okay, and then if we have more channels, okay, if we have only one channel, it's like this. If we have more channels, then what happens? What is the change I should bring in here in this expression?
We will multiply with number of channels.
Yeah, so we do it for all channels. See, okay, so fine. The notation here is C to C. Okay, not so C in L plus 1 is obtained with C C channel. So if we want to give L plus 1 is the channel notation I have given. So if we would like to bring in the previous notation, whatever we had, so let's put L plus 1 on the upper like superscript. Okay, so that actually we retain the notation. If we have actually C channels here, that is actually what was the notation we were using? J, right? So J channels, J capital J channels here, J output I. Okay. So if we are doing this, so what we can do here is J is equal to L plus 1 is equal to I summation over I, and K has index of I and J. Is this clear? 1 to C channels. Okay, and J also is varies from 1 to C because there are C channels here. Hope this is clear. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so now the receptive field is here is 7 cross 7. Okay, and then the number of operations are how much in this case? Are how much? Yeah, please to answer quickly. Assume that the height and width are H and W, and we maintain with padding to such that the height and width are also retained, so that actually we have the ease of understanding our operations. Okay, so now number of operations are how much? Yeah, please answer.
W into H into 7 into 7.
7 cross 7 into
W cross H.
W cross H. That's all. Yeah, if we have filters also, see C filters here and C filters here, C maps here, C maps here. We didn't start with the 0 maps or with one map. No, we started with C maps here, C maps here. So essentially H cross W. Okay, over H cross W, we are doing convolution 7 cross 7 cross C. Okay, and C times we are doing to get the C maps in the next layer. Yes, and these are the number of operations we need. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so now see if 7 cross 7 region is what we are seeing. Now assume that if I want to get a finer details, assume that the cat is very small, the object is very small. Okay, and there are even two parts of the one object is like this, one object is like this. There are different parts of the object within the 7 cross 7. Do you think can I distinguish them after convolving and getting a information here? Yes or no? See, if I have 3 objects here and 3 object features are there within 7 cross 7, do you think will I be able to differentiate them after doing the 7 cross 7 convolution?
No, sir.
Yes, how do we differentiate? Because they are all at 7 class 7. Okay, and of course, I may use some stride, but the stride is also a little bigger, assume that. Okay, even if I use stride, I assume that every time there are at least 2 objects, information, okay, in one of the 7 class 7 filter, or one of the M class 7 patch. In that case, is there the features of each individual object, are they separately captured? Are effectively captured? The answer is no, because you are merging the features of this object versus this object, right? Even if you bring in, if there is another object here, okay, so you are not separate, like you don't have the provision to capture if there are white blood cells or red blood cells, for example, okay, and the cells are very small and they're very close. Okay, in that case, you can't get a 7 class 7 region wherein only one blood cell is there. In any 7 class 7, you have at least couple of blood cells. Okay, and then your information is all mixed here. Is it not in this 7 class 7? So you will not be getting the finer details here. Okay, if you use a map that or filter, dimensions are greater. Okay, no finer details than dimension of filter. Can be captured. Yes or no? So I assume you people understand. Okay, so for that reason, what is essentially suggested or important to initially to start with, say if I want to capture the finer details first, start with the minimum map, okay, or the minimum filter or smallest filter. Okay, to perform feature extraction. Okay, what is the smallest filter that enables us to extract features?
3 cross 3.
Yeah.
1 cross 1.
Yeah, 1 cross 1 may not be enabled directly to extract features. 1 cross 1 will essentially be doing actually a kind of weightage to the pixels. That's all. Okay, 3 cross 3 is at least necessary because pixels are not by them alone makes any sense. Okay, so the patch is what is making a sense in an image. Most of the times a single pixel, except in a point target case, okay, we don't have information in the pixel. What we have information is in the neighborhood of the pixel. Okay, along with the center of the pixel, of course. Okay, so what we need to do is we have to take 3 cross 3. Okay, for feature extraction. Well, there are other advantages of doing 1 cross 1 that we will discuss later. But for time being, we for feature extraction, the smallest is 3 cross 3. With 3 cross 3, if we do, okay, and then if we make a feature extract, if we form the next layer, okay, then we have actually each neuron having 3 cross 3 region. It is the receptive field of each neuron here is how much now? So now let me write the receptive fields. Is 3 cross 3. Okay, at this neuron. So now assume that, but still I want to say, for example, I want to have more layers now. Okay, and want to see how many layers should I have so that I will have the same receptive field as 7 cross 7 again. Okay, so now see if I see this each of the neuron here, it is looking at 3 cross 3 region here. Okay, so now assume that if I move on to the next layer. So this is the, say, if I see, let me, okay, so this is 3 cross 3, this is 5 cross 5. Oh, so it's fine. So assume that we have actually 3 cross 3 region here again. Okay, and this 3 cross 3 region, if I see overall, how much region will it look in this image? This 3 cross 3 region here, how much does it look at the original image? This is important because now assume that if I perform now, okay, again a convolution operation with 3 cross 3 as the kernel size here. So here also 3 cross 3 filters. Here also 3 cross 3 filters. Okay, if I apply 3x3 filter here, now the question is this neuron, what is the receptive field of this neuron?
Nine cross 9.
How much?
9 cross 9.
Yeah, why? See here, actually 3x3 here. This here, how much does it see here? In this layer, in say, if I say XL, okay, XL plus 1 here and XL plus 2 here. Okay.
Yes, sir. 5 cross
Oh, it is.
5.
Yeah, this will see 7x7 here. Sorry, this will see 3x3 here. Now, if I see any of the neuron here, how much, say, how much more will it see? This will see again 3x3 here. Is it not? So this also will see again 3x3 here. Okay, and this will see again a 3x3 here. So overall, if I see, okay, so what, how many number of more pixels will it see in compared to this 3x3? If I see 1 pixel up and 1 pixel down, right? So overall, it is looking at how much. Say this is 3x3. Sorry, this region it will see 3x3, and this will see how much now? What is the receptive field of this? Of this neuron now, if I want to see, how much more will it look? 1 up, 1 down. So overall, it is looking at
5 cross 5.
5 cross 5. Okay, it's only looking at 5 cross 5. So this is looking at 3 cross 3. This receptive field is 3 cross 3. Okay, and its receptive field is 5 cross 5 for the neuron. Right? Now let's move on to the one more layer. Then how much will it look? Can you quickly answer? Okay, so now if we see this looks at 3 cross 3 here already. Okay, and this looks at 3 cross 3, again 3 cross 3 filter. Okay, and this now looks at how much?
5 cross 5.
Yeah, this looks at 5 cross 5. And this now looks at how much?
9 cross 9.
Huh?
7 cross 7.
Yeah, 7 cross 7. Let me just try to sketch this previous one smaller. We match to the dimensions. Five cross 5 is this much, right? Yeah, previously we were looking at actually okay, this is 5, sorry. This is 5 cross 5. Okay, now how much? This will look at, okay, 7 cross 7. Okay, my 7 cross 7 here and here are not matching, but assume that they are same. Okay, so now this receptive field here is 7 cross 7. So now what's happening here? See, I'm starting from very fine details. Okay, I'm starting from very fine details. From there, I'm trying to move towards actually feature extraction of one stage. Second stage of feature extraction here, each of the neuron here or each of the feature here is looking at 5 cross 5 and taking a decision. Here, each of the neuron is looking at 3 cross 3 and taking a decision, or at least recording its value. Okay, so here again, each of the neuron here is looking at 7 cross 7 region in the horizontal image and taking its value or inferring some value. So this is roughly equivalent to looking at actually the 7 cross 7 in the first case. Is it not? So now let's see the comparison of number of operations between this is case 1, okay, versus case 2. Okay, so in this case, the number of operations are how much? Okay, can one of you tell? See, H cross W is common in all of these things, right? Because assume that we maintain C filters also everywhere. All are C filters. Okay, and then H cross W also we can maintain. How can we maintain H cross W? How do you think we can maintain H cross W?
By padding.
Yeah, by zero padding, that's all. Okay, H cross W also we maintain. Okay, so now what we want to see is the number of operations. Okay, so any answer on this number of operations? See, let me write here just to get this space. Let us start the case 2 from here. And number of operations here. A quick answer is welcome. So you have here H cross W cross. How much? First layer. Okay, con 1 you can consider. Okay, so this is con 1, con 2 and con 3. Well, let's see that. Okay, layer by layer, let's come for the recording of operation, noting the total number of operations. Yeah, please tell quickly, otherwise I will write here anyway.
3 cross 3 cross C cross C.
Into C cross C. This is for first layer. And for the second layer, again H cross W cross 3 cross 3 cross C cross 3. For the third layer, H cross W cross 3 cross 3 cross C cross C. Essentially, totally what we have here, if we see, okay, H cross W cross C square cross 3 square, right? Is there something missing here?
3 cubes.
Into 3, right?
Thank you.
So H cross W into C square into 3 square into 3. Okay, so now this is the number of operations. These are the number of operations in case 2, where we go from feature extraction. What is the difference between case 1 and case 2? Straight away start with large receptive field. Okay, so we are starting initially itself from a large receptive field. Or course details. Whereas in this case, what's the advantage? We are starting from case 2 is, okay, final details. Details. Okay, so now in this case, the operations also let us see. So in the first case versus second case, which requires lesser number of operations. Leaving the operations H cross W, which is same. You see the effective number of operations here is equal to, okay, 7 square into C square. Okay, into H cross W anyway. That's let's leave this. Okay, essentially 49 C square. Okay, into dimensions of the object. Okay, proportional to 49 C square, I say, because assuming the dimension of object is same. Okay, now in this case, operations are proportional to what? How much?
27 C square.
27 C square. So which is smaller? So almost half the number of operations. Is it not? Between the two. So we have number of operations are also lesser. Okay, and we are going from final to course details. So thus which architecture? Okay, do you suggest this is case 1 means architecture 1? Okay, versus architecture 2. Both are looking at same region now. Okay, so which do you prefer? Huh? Which one should we prefer?
Case 2.
The second.
Yeah, case 2 or architecture 2. Okay. Fine. So the first architecture is essentially imitating or the initial architectures, starting from, say, for example, LXNet and ZFnet. Okay, and this architecture is VZZ. Okay, so this is named after the group. Okay, and then these are named after their researchers. So essentially, you can see that the later architectures are mostly with, say, with small filter size. So the advantage of having small filter size is we will have more number of layers, fine, but the learning happens gradually. Okay, and you can even see the finer details and assimilate them to get the coarser details, or okay, more effective features. In between, there is no sampling layer we have considered. Okay, if we consider the sampling layer, it's even okay, the things are roughly same, but you see the receptive field gets okay doubled of with the introduction of each sampling layer. Okay, after sampling layer, if you see a neuron, that will see the effectively double the region as that the layer before sampling layer sees. Okay, neurons in the before sampling layer sees. Okay, so is this clear? Is this idea clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. If there are any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we will stop the today's discussion here. Thank you then.